everybody. So glad you guys all tuned in. Thank you, everybody, for coming out here. We are in Prattsburgh Park in Steuben County. Stop number 38 of the full Sharpe of 62. Rocking and rolling. I'm glad you guys came out. Why in the world would I be out here on a Saturday, right? I didn't forget what day it is. Why would I be out here on a Saturday morning, on a chilly Saturday morning, about 50 degrees or so? We're all wearing sweatshirts, right? We're all wearing hoodies. Why would I be doing this? Because it matters. I have talked the talk about how local communities matter, how home rule matters, how each county is important, how all these things matter. So if I'm going to talk the talk, I have to walk the walk, and I'm walking it. I'm sitting here going to every single county in New York State because every single county matters. Where are we going to find the solutions for all of our problems? I would ask you, when has central planning been the answer? It hasn't. It's been local people coming up with local answers, whether that's government, whether that's business, doesn't matter. An example I'll give you, has anybody ever thought about how popular the Subway $5 footlong has become? Right? Very popular. People know it. They remember the song, all that stuff. They love it. You might go, wow, that was a brilliant marketing plan put together by the corporation that runs Subway, right? No, that was a local franchisee who thought that was a good idea. He started it. It took off. They copied him. That's how it works in business. That's how it works in government. That's how it works in life. As a business consultant, I have very often to come in and reorg and change and shift and adjust corporations. And people say, whoa, when you come in like a TV show, you walk in and say, new sheriff in town. I'm going to tell you the way to do things. No, that's TV and movies. In reality, a good consultant comes in and starts talking to the people on the front line and says, what's actually happening? Tell me what's actually happening on the front line. And every time I hear something consistent, that's probably true. When it's not consistent, it's a personal grudge. I get it. But if you keep hearing the same thing, well, Johnny's really mean. Well, Johnny's really mean. Guess what? Johnny's really mean. Even though the boss, who he's fooled, thinks Johnny's great. That's not how that works. Talking to people on the front line, talking to the people who are having their problems is the way things work in business and life, and also should work in government. Now, I know a lot of people now are saying, well, President Trump, everybody talking about this. President Trump now, he tested positive for COVID. And now people are mad about mask mandates or not mask mandates. By the way, I am outside and more than 6 feet away, so I don't have a mask on. But anyway, so just in case you're angry at me, I am outside and everyone's like 9 feet away from me. We're good. So thank you guys for staying so far away from me. I did shower this morning, so it isn't a BO thing. It's a safety thing. So any case, everyone's talking about that. I get it. But there's one of the reasons why this is so controversial. It's because it was mandated. That's the reason why it's so controversial. But imagine if when COVID first happened, instead of us deciding, let's create rules from the top, which everyone said, we need federal guidelines. They're still saying that. We need federal guidelines, federal rules, federal everything. If instead of doing that, we had simply said, you know what? Let's let everyone know what we think is the problem. And use government for the one thing I talk about it often, to be a central repository for information and not have teeth and not be able to enforce its will, but instead say, here is the COVID-19 official website. Here is what the government thinks you should do to do well. And not just that, here are some other tabs available for other organizations who have a different view on this. So maybe you're the Doctors Association, you have a view. You're a holistic association, different view. Each one has a different view. And now we can now look and go, okay, I buy that. Ooh, what things match? Oh, all three of them say this is a good idea? We should do that. And then you as an individual and as an organization can begin to create your own rules and regulations, your own guidelines. But Larry, then there'll be guidelines all over the place. Yes, and if we had started that in February, we would literally have small laboratories of what works and what doesn't work. And we would now know what works. And we would look and say, this area has adopted this and no one's got it. Let's follow that. No one's mandating. No one's angry. No one's fighting. And the funniest part is, I live in New York City, as many of you know. This began at the local level before the mandate. people started on their own figuring out, should we try this 6-foot thing? Should we put plastic up? They were doing their own things to figure out what they should do. Now, New York City is different. You know, I heard in Yates County, the last time I heard, there were only 6 deaths in Yates County. All of them came from one nursing home. Why in the world would Yates County, with about 30,000 people total, why would that county follow the same protocols as Manhattan? It makes no sense. It's a different world. It's a different world. There are more people in 10 blocks of Manhattan than there are in the entire county of Yates. Of course you'll change how you act. Of course you would, and we should. But most importantly, people are adopting those ideas on their own, and they wouldn't fight. But the second that they said, you must wear a mask, we fought. And the funny part is, that's understandable. We get it. We know that. So why do it? Here's the biggest problem. We have set ourselves up the way our government works, that is in our best interest as a government. If I'm a governor or a mayor or an executive, it is my best interest to do everything to destroy your rights. Why? Because if people still die, I can say, I did everything I could possibly do. See, don't blame me. And if people don't die, see, I saved you. So either way, I've either saved you or done all I can. But the problem is, it's not my responsibility to do so. Every executive takes the same oath I took as a Marine. And that Marine is to defend and support the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Defend the Constitution, not defend every single American to make sure nobody's ever hurt ever. That's not the job of an executive in American government. We've taken that to be the job, but it isn't. If our executives defend the Constitution defends our rights, and we defend ourselves. That's what's supposed to happen. Boy, is that not happening. That is not happening. And the bells going off in the background, as I tell you, when bells go off, it means I'm right. That's what that means. So as you've often heard bells go off while I'm speaking, it's because I'm correct. Right? The town knows, oh, Larry's right. Ding, 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 ring the bells. That is correct. That is why this is important. You should understand. But the question is, so what's next? Do we just all of a sudden say, well, get rid of government? I know many people watching would think that. Some of you think that too. But the reality of it is, remember something. Government is both a monopoly and a jobs program. Always those two things. If you just remove government with no plan, what happens? People lose jobs, they get angry, beg for it back. And more importantly, there's nothing there for support. Whenever you remove government, you have to add either commerce and or community. You must add both whenever possible. That then picks up the slack, right? Commerce and community can pick up the slack of government. And prior to us relying on government, that is what did pick up the slack. The problem is there are so many communities in our country, in our state, to where they spent generations waiting for government to do something. Many of them don't even know how to support each other anymore. They don't even think that's the thing. So government now has to begin to create ideas and concepts so that we can support each other. When I ran for governor, I had an idea, for those of you who remember. It was a tax credit concept. That if you're going to pay your taxes, which we're going to pay anyway, you can take up to $250 of your taxes that would go to the government. Instead, give them to a nonprofit in New York State. If you want to give to a nonprofit in your county, you get an extra $250. So you can take your tax dollars, and instead of sending them to Albany and hoping they get back to you in some way, shape, or form, excuse me, you can take your $500 and give it directly to your county and say, here, nonprofit, here's $500. What would that mean? The nonprofit now has to come to you and go, hey, look, I'm servicing, I'm helping. Give me your money. I'm actually helping, whether that's a local private school, whether that's helping out with single moms, whether that's helping out with homeless, addiction, whatever is your issue. What government does well is it services you and keeps you in bondage. Very good at that. What nonprofits do is actually help. So instead, now you can give your money locally. That is how we begin to get local people to start learning how to service themselves in the community. Remember, when you're in trouble, the first thing you need is not a program. You might need one, but it's not the first thing you need. The first thing you need is someone who cares. When you get someone who cares, that person can then say, okay, well, you use this or that or this, whatever that thing might be. But when you go to government, they check a box, you get services, and have a nice day. If it helps you, awesome. If it doesn't, I check the box. Next. I don't want check a box next. I want us in our communities to help each other, and we can, with the right policies to adjust and shift. And I would ask you, what Democrat or what Republican is speaking about this? None. Doesn't exist. Does not exist. Their answer is either invest if they're Republican or fund if they're Democrat. Both means more taxes, more fees. Neither of them actually means helping community pick up the slack. And that's what we need. If you care about your community, if you care about your state, if you care about your nation, there's only one answer for you. This year, vote gold. This year, vote Libertarian. Not next year, the year after. This year, vote gold. If you want more people speaking about actual answers, more people speaking about community, more people respecting, and this is the funny part, if you're a Democrat, you have heard a million times, diversity, 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 diversity. All the time, diversity. But if you're a Democrat, what diversity actually means is checking a box and then accepting centralized control. If you're a Libertarian, what diversity actually means is accepting diversity. Accepting that each county is different, that each community is different, and letting them be who they want to be. In my situation in New York State, and I'm sure many of you watching in the same situation, people get mad because one city controls the entire state. Yeah, New York City shouldn't control the entire state. Albany, in my state, shouldn't control the entire state. You know what New York City should control? New York City. And people upstate wouldn't be so mad if New York City just controlled New York City. They'd be like, great, good on you. And New York City would be okay too. Thank you. We want to control ourselves. Thank you. Brooklyn would like to stay Brooklyn. And then Steuben can stay Steuben. And everyone can stay who they want to be. Only Libertarians talk about that. Republicans don't even talk about it, and Democrats give it lip service and check boxes. Libertarians actually care about diversity by letting you be who you are. And I say, Larry, you have any proof of that? Yes, I do. There was literally an independent newspaper did a check on all the campaigns of the gubernatorial candidates in 2018. Who had the most diverse campaign? Mine was the most diverse campaign. Did I have check boxes? No. I just looked at my Libertarian crew, picked the best people I could find, and I happened to have the most diverse crew. That's the critical piece. Diversity is not about your race, ethnic background, or religion. It is about a diversity of thought and a unity of purpose. That is how diversity works. That's how success works. Diversity of thought, unity of purpose, which means sometimes that does mean ethnic background, religion. It does sometimes, but it also might mean where you grow up. When I was talking about fixing the police, I talked about it often. I had a whole plan, my facts plan, right? There was a cop from upstate New York who called me up and said, hey, Larry, can we talk about this? It may not work out right for upstate New York, for rural communities. So I had him on my Sharpe show. We talked it out, and he was right. Why? Where's my mindset? My thought process is New York City policing. Of course, I live in New York City my whole life. Of course, that's how I think of it. But I didn't go, be quiet, listen to my views. I didn't do that. I said, hey, guy who doesn't come from where I come from, why don't we have a conversation that adjust and shift my policy? Because I care about that. New York City has 40,000 cops. There's more cops in New York City than all people in Yates County. Yes. That's a different police force, right? It's a different issue. So we have to change how we think. If that matters to you, right now you got to vote gold. You might say, but Larry, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat. Do I really want to vote gold? I want to vote for my guy or my gal. Well, let me be very clear. In most situations, my state, obviously, but many gerrymandered districts, you already know who's going to win. You already know. If your district's gerrymandered, at least a third of the races being run across this country are unopposed. So that you know who's going to win. In New York State, Biden's going to win my state. It doesn't matter whether you like a Biden. If you happen to like Biden, congrats. If you don't like Biden, I'm sorry. But either way, he's taking New York State's votes. That's how it works. So why would I vote for them? Why would I vote for Trump or Biden in New York State? Why would you vote for the Democrat or Republican in your gerrymandered district where you know who's going to win already? Why would you do that? Instead, vote gold. Vote Libertarian. But why, Larry? For me, why do I care? I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. Because if you don't have a strong Libertarian Party in your state, in your county, your individual Republican or Democrat does not have to work hard. They don't have to do anything. They can be a terrible Democrat or a terrible Republican. Republicans are supposed to be about smaller government, less taxes. They're not. Democrats are supposed to be about civil liberties. They're not. But when there's a Libertarian in that race, when there is a strong Libertarian Party, they must be. You will have better Democrats and better Republicans if you support the Libertarian Party this year. But more importantly, when this election's over, the Trump wins or Trump loses, whatever the case may be, there are going to be tens of millions of unhappy Americans across this nation. Unhappy. Where are they going to go? They're going to check out or go further right or further left, depending on who wins. That's what's going to happen. We're going to dig deeper into that hole, that is that gap in between us. Or they can come to us. The only movement that can actually heal this nation, the only movement that can actually allow people to be both liberal and or conservative in their own communities, in their own ways, without forcing their views on others. If we do that, we can actually win this thing and make our country far better than it is right now. We can actually do that. Vote gold this year. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. Yes, you clap. You want to? Yes, thank you. Clap. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you for coming. Thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you.